Most people think growing older is about collecting answers, more years, more stories, more certainty about how life works. But that isn't what happens. Not really. If anything, age doesn't hand you answers, it quietly takes them away. There's a moment that comes later in life, often unannounced. You're standing in a familiar room, maybe your own kitchen, maybe a place you've known for decades. Nothing dramatic is happening. And yet, something loosens inside you. You realize that many of the things you once believed were essential weren't. The urgency, the proving, the constant need to be right, to be seen, to stay ahead of some invisible clock. You don't feel defeated by this realization. You feel lighter. That's the part no one tells you. We're taught that wisdom is accumulation, that we build it brick by brick. But lived experience whispers a different truth. Wisdom often arrives through subtraction, through the quiet release of what no longer fits the hands you now live with. When you're young, you think life is asking you to hold on tighter, to try harder, to protect everything you've earned and everything you hope to become. Later, you begin to sense that life is asking something else entirely, not surrender, not giving up, but a softer grip. And when that understanding finally lands, it's subtle, almost tender. You don't announce it to anyone. You just nod inwardly and think, ah, so that's how it really is. Naisi dop egsof inwallet. For most of our lives, we're quietly taught the wrong lesson about happiness. We're told it lives somewhere ahead of us, after we fix enough, achieve enough, endure enough. That happiness is a reward, handed out at the end of a long road, paved with effort and sacrifice. And so, we keep moving, carrying expectations, regrets, unspoken grief, old roles we never questioned. We mistake endurance for meaning, busyness for purpose. Aging, when it's honest, gently exposes this misunderstanding. It shows us that much of our suffering didn't come from lack, but from holding on to who we thought we had to be, holding on to relationships long past their warmth, holding on to versions of ourselves that once made sense, but now only create tension. Letting go isn't about loss the way we once feared it was. It isn't erasing the past or dismissing what mattered. It's recognizing that some things have already finished their work in us. They shaped us. They taught us. And then, quietly, they asked to be set down. This is where the shift begins, not with grand declarations, but with awareness, a soft noticing, the realization that peace doesn't arrive when life finally behaves, but when we stop demanding that it do so. Growing older doesn't strip life of its color, it refines it. Fewer distractions, sharper truths, a deeper appreciation for what remains when the noise settles. And once that understanding takes root, you begin to see your own life differently, not as a list of achievements or failures, but as a long conversation between who you were, who you are, and what you're finally ready to release. From here, the real reflections begin. Section 1. Letting go of the need to be understood. There's a particular tiredness that comes from explaining yourself for too many years. You try to choose the right words. You soften your tone. You replay conversations in your mind long after they have ended, wondering if you could have said it better, clearer, kinder, all because you wanted to be understood, to be seen accurately, to have your intentions recognized, not misread. For a long time, that effort feels necessary, almost noble, but then one day, something shifts. You notice how rarely people hear what you actually mean, how often they listen through the filter of their own fears, needs, and unfinished stories. You realize that even when you speak from the heart, It lands differently in every pair of ears, and strangely, that realization doesn't hurt the way it once did. It brings relief. You begin to understand that being misunderstood is not a failure. It's a condition of being human. No explanation, no matter how carefully crafted, can bridge every inner world. And trying to do so exhausts the very part of you that longs for peace. So, you stop defending yourself in small, quiet ways. Not out of bitterness, out of clarity. You speak honestly, but you no longer chase agreement. You allow silence to do some of the work words once tried to force. You trust that those who are meant to feel you will, and those who don't, were never yours to convince. In that letting go, something sacred opens. A calm, steady space where your worth is no longer negotiated, where your inner life becomes more important than your public explanation, and peace, real peace, finds room to breathe. Section 2. Letting go of old guilt that no longer belongs to you. Guilt has a way of aging with us. It settles into the body quietly, like an old ache we stop questioning. It's there in the pauses between thoughts, in the way we revisit certain moments again and again. Things said too sharply, chances missed, people we couldn't save, versions of ourselves we no longer recognize. For years, guilt feels like responsibility, like proof that we cared. You tell yourself that if you carry it long enough, maybe it will balance the scales. Maybe it will somehow make things right. So you keep it close, even when it costs you sleep, ease, and kindness toward yourself. But with time, a deeper understanding begins to surface. You start to see how limited you were back then, how much you didn't know, how much you were surviving rather than choosing. You remember the pressures you were under, the emotional tools you didn't yet have, the fears that guided your decisions when wisdom hadn't arrived, and slowly, the question changes. Not, why did I do that? But, what was I capable of then? That question softens something. You realize that guilt, when carried beyond its usefulness, becomes a story you punish yourself with long after the lesson has been learned. And punishment was never the point, so you begin, gently, to release what no longer needs to be held. You honor the memory without reopening the wound. You allow compassion to reach backward in time. In that moment, something unknots inside the chest. The past loosens its grip, and inner peace arrives, not by forgetting, but by finally understanding. Section 3. Letting go of the idea that life should have turned out differently. There comes a quiet reckoning in later years, often when you least expect it. You look back, not out of regret necessarily, but curiosity. You trace the paths you didn't take. The versions of life that once felt just within reach, the career that veered off course, the relationship that might have lasted, the move you never made, or the one you made too quickly. For a long time, these thoughts carry a sharp edge, a sense that life somehow missed its mark, that if one moment had gone differently, everything else would have fallen into place. But age brings a softer lens. You begin to see how fragile those imagined lives really were, built on assumptions, not certainty. You realize how much of what shaped you came from detours, not plans, from losses that deepened you, from endings that quietly redirected your becoming. The truth is, life doesn't follow a straight line. It never did. What we call mistakes were often the only choices we could make with the awareness we had at the time. And the life you're living now, imperfect, uneven, real, contains a wisdom that no ideal version could have offered. Letting go of how life should have turned out isn't resignation. It's reconciliation. It's meeting your own story with respect instead of resistance. It's understanding that meaning isn't found in alternate endings, but in the depth you bring to the one you're living. And when that acceptance settles in, the past stops arguing with the present. A quiet peace takes its place. Section 4. Letting go of the need to always be strong. Strength is something many of us learned early. Not the loud kind, the kind that keeps going, that swallows tears, that shows up even when the body is tired and the heart feels thin. For years, being strong meant being reliable, composed, unshakable. It meant not becoming a burden, not letting life see you bend. And for a long time, that strength carried you. But eventually, you notice its cost. You feel it in the quiet loneliness of handling everything yourself, in the moments when you long to be held, not physically but emotionally, yet don't know how to ask. You realize how often strength has been mistaken for self-erasure. With age comes a different understanding. You begin to see that strength was never meant to be permanent armor. It was a bridge, something to help you cross difficult seasons, not a place to live forever. And continuing to wear it long after it's needed only keeps tenderness locked away. So, you start to allow small cracks. You admit when something hurts. You let someone else carry part of the weight, even if it feels unfamiliar. You stop apologizing for being human. And in doing so, you discover that softness doesn't weaken you, it steadies you. There is peace in no longer performing resilience, in allowing yourself to rest inside honesty, in realizing that vulnerability, shared at the right time, is not exposure, it's relief. And in that relief, life feels less heavy, less lonely, more true. Section 5. Letting go of fear about what remains. As the years pass, the future begins to feel different, not endless, not urgent, just closer. There's a subtle fear that can creep in during quiet moments, questions without clear answers. How much time is left? What will happen to the people I love? Will I be okay as things change? It's not panic, it's a low, steady hum beneath the surface. For a long time, fear seems practical, like preparation. But eventually, you notice how often it pulls you out of the present. How it dims moments that are still warm, still real. A shared laugh, a morning light through the window, a simple sense of being here. Age offers a gentler perspective. You realize that the future has always been uncertain, even when you were young. The only difference now is that you see it more clearly, and clarity, while uncomfortable at first, can also be freeing. You begin to understand that peace doesn't come from predicting what's ahead, but from learning how to be fully alive in what remains, not counting days, not borrowing trouble, just arriving where you are. Letting go of fear doesn't mean denying reality. It means refusing to let imagination steal the time that's still yours. And when fear loosens its grip, something unexpected appears. A quiet gratitude for the breath you're taking, for the life you've lived, for this moment complete on its own. When you step back and look at it all together, something becomes clear. Life doesn't grow simpler because we finally understand everything. It grows simpler because we stop carrying what was never meant to be permanent, the explanations, the guilt, the imagined alternatives, the armor, the fear. One by one, they loosen. Not because we force them to, but because we no longer need them in the same way. There is a kind of elegance in this stage of life, a quiet refinement. You notice how little is actually required for contentment now, a sense of inner alignment, a few honest connections, moments that don't rush past because you're not trying to turn them into something else. Peace stops feeling like a destination and starts feeling like a byproduct of subtraction, not addition. The mind grows calmer when it's no longer arguing with reality. The heart rests when it's no longer rehearsing the past or negotiating with the future. What remains is a steady presence, grounded and unassuming. You realize that freedom was never about escaping life's limits. It was about making peace with them. And in that peace, life feels whole, not because it's perfect, but because nothing essential is being resisted anymore. You are here. You have lived. You are living. And that, quietly, is enough. So, perhaps the real question is not what more there is to do, but what gently no longer needs to be carried. What beliefs about yourself have grown heavy over time, not because they're true, but because they're familiar. What stories do you still repeat out of habit, even though your life has already moved beyond them? And what would it feel like, just for a moment, to loosen your grip and see what remains? There is no finish line here, no final version of peace to arrive at, only a series of quiet invitations life continues to offer, even now. Invitations to notice, to soften, to sit with what is instead of reaching for what once was. When you look back across your years, what stands out most? The moments you controlled or the moments you allowed? The times you pushed forward or the times you finally rested into yourself? And if your life could speak back to you now, without judgment or urgency, what might it say? Maybe it would remind you that you were never late, that nothing essential was missed, that every season, especially the difficult ones, carried something forward into who you are today. And maybe the deepest freedom available now is simply this: to live the rest of your life not as something to fix or complete, but as something to quietly inhabit, with presence, with honesty, and with a heart that no longer needs to hurry.